The stars above Earth flickered with strange lights. Not meteors, not satellites, ships, hundreds of them, appearing from nowhere like ghosts materializing in the darkness of space. Inside the United Nations Emergency Command Center in Geneva, screens lit up with warnings. Every radar station on the planet was screaming the same message. Something massive had just entered orbit around Earth. General Martinez stood frozen, staring at the main display. In 30 years of military service, he had never seen anything like this. The vessels were enormous, each one the size of a small city. They moved with impossible grace, positioning themselves in a perfect defensive formation above the planet. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," a young communications officer called out, her voice shaking. It's not in any Earth language, but the computer is translating it automatically. They're sending the translation software along with the message. "Put it through," Martinez ordered. The main screen shifted. A face appeared, humanoid but clearly not human. The being had pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer with its own light. Its eyes were large and golden without visible pupils. When it spoke, its mouth moved slightly out of sync with the translated words that filled the room. "People of Earth, I am Ambassador Thorin of the Valak Concordance. Please do not be alarmed. We have come to protect you." Martinez felt his hand instinctively move toward his sidearm, then stopped. "Protect us from what?" Thorin's expression shifted to something that might have been concern. 3 solar rotations ago, we detected a war fleet moving through this sector. They are called the Krethix Dominion. They are conquerors, slavers. In the past 2 centuries, they have subjugated 17 inhabited worlds. Their fleet is now heading directly toward your system. The room erupted in noise. Officers shouted questions. Phones rang. Someone knocked over a coffee cup and the dark liquid spread across a desk like spilled blood. "Silence," Martinez roared. The room fell quiet. He turned back to the screen. "And you're here to... What, fight them?" "We are here to stand between them and your world," Thorin said. Her voice carried a weight of sadness. "We have been observing Earth for many years. We know you are not yet ready for the realities of the greater galaxy. Your species is young. You still fight among yourselves. You damage your own planet. You have not yet learned peace." Martinez felt his jaw tighten. There was something condescending in the alien's tone, like a parent explaining danger to a child. "We do not have the military strength to defeat the Krethix," Thorin continued, "but we can buy you time. We can hold them back long enough for you to evacuate your cities, to hide your people. Some of you may survive what is coming." "How long do we have?" Martinez asked. "Their fleet will arrive in 48 of your hours. 2 days. Martinez felt the weight of it settle on his shoulders. 2 days until an alien armada arrived to conquer Earth, and the only thing standing in their way was another group of aliens who admitted they probably couldn't win. "We need to contact the other nations," Martinez said to his staff. "Get me the Chinese, Russians, the EU, everyone. We need a unified response." The next hours were chaos. Emergency sessions were called in every major government. Religious leaders spoke of end times. Conspiracy theorists claimed vindication. Regular people flooded the streets, some in panic, others in bizarre celebration that they weren't alone in the universe. But in the military command centers around the world, a different conversation was happening. "The Valak fleet is positioning itself in a defensive sphere around Earth," reported Admiral Chen from the Chinese Space Command. "Their ships are powerful, but their tactics are strange. They're not acting like a military force. They're acting like peacekeepers." "Because that's what they are," said Colonel Okonkwo from the African Union. "Look at their weapons systems. They're designed to disable, not destroy. These aliens have probably never fought a real war in their lives." Martinez pulled up the tactical analysis his team had prepared. The Valak ships were impressive by Earth standards, but something felt off. Their shield generators were strong but positioned poorly. Their weapons had long charge times. Their fleet formation was defensive to the point of being passive. These aliens were amateurs. "What about our forces?" Martinez asked. Admiral Chen smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "Ready and waiting, General. Just say the word." "Not yet," Martinez said. "Let's see how this plays out." 12 hours later, Ambassador Thorin requested another meeting. This time she appeared via hologram in multiple command centers simultaneously. Behind her, other Valak could be seen working at strange, glowing consoles. "We have updated our scans of the approaching Krethix fleet," Thorin said. "It is larger than we initially calculated." War Prince Zarthal himself commands it. He has never been defeated. When he arrives, he will demand your surrender. He will promise mercy if you comply. This is a lie. The Krethiks do not show mercy. What do they want? Asked President Okafor of the West African Federation. Resources, labor, territory. Your world is rich in water and minerals. Your population is large enough to be useful as a workforce. You will be scattered across their empire. Separated from your families, your cultures erased. This is what they do. The human leaders exchanged glances across multiple video feeds. There was something in those looks, something the Valak would not understand. Not yet, and you're willing to die for us? Martinez asked. Thorin nodded slowly. The concordance was founded on a principle, that all sapient life has value, that the strong must protect the weak. We have failed to protect 17 worlds. We will not fail Earth, even if it costs us everything. There was genuine conviction in her voice. These aliens truly believed they were humanity's only hope. They had watched Earth for decades, seen the wars, the pollution, the conflicts. They thought humans were victims waiting to happen. Martinez almost felt bad about what was going to happen next. We appreciate your sacrifice, Ambassador, he said carefully. Earth will remember the Valak Concordance. As the transmission ended, Martinez turned to his staff. Get me Admiral Chen, General Volkov, and Commander Williams. It's time to brief them on Protocol Omega. Outside, beyond the orbit of Mars, space rippled like disturbed water. One by one, massive vessels began to appear. They were angular and brutal, covered in weapons that looked like they had been designed for nothing but destruction. The Krethiks fleet had arrived early. On their flagship, War Prince Zarthal studied the primitive planet on his display. Behind it, the pathetic Valak fleet tried to look threatening. He almost laughed. The Valak were philosophers, not warriors. They would break quickly, and the humans, according to his scouts, they still used chemical rockets and primitive nuclear weapons. They would surrender before the first shot was even fired. This would be easy. War Prince Zarthal had no idea how wrong he was. War Prince Zarthal sat on his command throne, watching the blue planet grow larger on the display. Around him, his officers worked at their stations, confident and efficient. They had done this before, 17 times before. Open a channel to the planet, Zarthal ordered. Let us see how quickly they beg. The communication systems activated. Zarthal's image was broadcast to every screen on Earth, and to the Valak fleet floating between his armada and the planet. I am War Prince Zarthal of the Krethiks Dominion. His voice boomed. Your world now belongs to the Dominion. You have one rotation to surrender. Lower your planetary defenses. Transmit the locations of your population centers. Prepare your leaders for transfer to our custody. If you comply, your deaths will be minimal. If you resist, we will burn your cities from orbit and take what remains. He waited for the panic, for the desperate pleas, for the inevitable surrender. Instead, silence. Then Ambassador Thorin's face appeared on his screen. War Prince Zarthal, I speak for the Valak Concordance. Earth is under our protection. You will not pass this line. Turn your fleet around or face the consequences. Zarthal laughed. It was a harsh barking sound. The Valak, of course. You philosophers love to play hero. How many of your ships will I have to destroy before you run? 3? 5? I promise to make your deaths quick out of respect for your foolishness. We will not run, Thorin said quietly. We will not abandon Earth. Then you will die. Zarthal cut the transmission and turned to his weapons master. Prepare the main cannons. We'll punch through their shields in the first volley. Let the humans watch their protectors burn. Then they'll... Sir, one of his sensor officers called out. New contacts! Multiple vessels emerging from behind the planet's moon. Zarthal frowned. The humans have ships in space? How quaint. How many? 40. No, 60. The count keeps rising, sir. They were hiding in the electromagnetic shadow of the lunar body. Very clever for primitives. On the tactical display, human ships began appearing. They were smaller than the Krethiks warships, but there were many of them. And they were moving fast, accelerating at rates that made Zarthal's sensor officer double-check the readings. They're moving past the Valak line, another officer reported. They're positioning themselves between us and the Valak fleet. Zarthal watched with growing confusion as the human ships formed up. Their formation was strange, loose, almost chaotic. Nothing like the rigid military formations of proper warships. What are they doing? Then a new face appeared on his screen. A human male, older, with gray hair and dark skin. He wore a military uniform covered in symbols Zarthul didn't recognize. The human was smiling. "War Prince Zarthul," the human said. "I'm Admiral Chen of the Terran Defense Force. I need to inform you that you've made a mistake." "A mistake?" Zarthul said, genuinely confused. "Human, you should be negotiating your surrender, not making jokes." "No joke," Chen said. His smile grew wider. "You see, you've been watching us for a while, haven't you? Studied our capabilities. Our weapons?" "We have," Zarthul admitted. "Primitive kinetic weapons, chemical propulsion, basic energy generation. You are centuries behind Dominion technology." "Right," Chen nodded. "Here's the thing, though. You've been watching us fight each other. Civil conflicts, border disputes, small wars. You haven't seen us fight someone else, someone from outside." Behind Chen in the human command center, Zarthul could see other humans working calmly at their stations. No panic, no fear. They looked almost eager. "What difference does that make?" Zarthul demanded. Chen's smile vanished. His expression went cold. "All the difference in the galaxy." Aboard the Velak flagship, Ambassador Thorin watched in horror as human ships streamed past her defensive line. "Admiral Chen, what are you doing? Pull back. You're putting yourselves in the direct line of fire." Chen's voice came through the communication channel. "With respect, Ambassador, we've got this. You should move your ships back. This is about to get messy." "Admiral, we've studied your military capabilities," Thorin pleaded. "You have no chance against the Krethiks. Your weapons are too weak, your ship's too slow. Please let us protect you." There was a pause. Then Chen said something that Thorin would remember for the rest of her life. "Ambassador, you've been watching us for decades. You saw our wars, our weapons, our conflicts, but you only saw what we wanted you to see. You saw us fighting with one hand tied behind our backs, trying not to damage our own planet too badly. You never asked yourself what we'd do if we didn't have to worry about that." "I don't understand," Thorin said. "I know," Chen replied gently. "That's why you should move back. We're about to show you who we really are." Zarthul had heard enough. "Destroy them. All weapons, full power. I want those human ships turned to debris in the next 60 seconds. The Krethiks fleet opened fire. Energy beams lanced through space, bright enough to blind unprotected eyes. Missiles streaked forward, leaving trails of superheated plasma. It was the kind of overwhelming firepower that had shattered 17 civilizations. The human ships scattered like frightened birds. Their movements were erratic, unpredictable. Several took direct hits, their shields flared and failed, hulls breached, atmosphere venting into space. "Confirmed kills," the weapons master called out. "4 human vessels destroyed, 6 more heavily damaged." Zarthul nodded. "As expected. Continue firing. Let's finish this quickly." But the surviving human ships weren't retreating. They were regrouping, forming new patterns. And they were doing something strange. They were accelerating toward the Krethiks fleet, not away from it. "Sir?" the sensor officer said, his voice uncertain. "The humans are launching something. Thousands of small objects, too small to be missiles. They're just chunks of metal. Primitive kinetic weapons." Zarthul waved dismissively. "Our shields will handle simple projectiles. Continue." The first railgun round hit at 30% light speed. It punched through the shield of a Krethik's destroyer like it didn't exist, vaporized half the ship in a flash of energy, and exited out the other side. The ship broke apart, atmosphere and crew sucking out into the void. Then the second round hit, and the third, and the 100th, shields failing on multiple vessels. An officer screamed. "Those aren't simple kinetic weapons. The impact speeds are impossible." "Evasive maneuvers," Zarthul roared. "All ships, scatter formation." But the Krethik's ships were built for overwhelming force, not agility. They were too slow. The human railguns continued firing. Each round accelerated to velocities that turned simple metal into unstoppable force. Where energy shields might deflect a laser or plasma bolt, they offered no protection against solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. Zarthul watched in disbelief as 3 more of his ships died. How are they generating that much power? Those velocities should require energy outputs beyond their capabilities. Chen's face reappeared on the screen. He wasn't smiling anymore. "You assumed we were showing you our best weapons. We weren't. The satellites you've been watching, those were for keeping nukes from flying between nations. The weapons we tested, those were prototypes, 3 generations behind what we're actually using. You saw us playing with training equipment and thought that's all we had." "Impossible," Zarthul breathed. "You know what the really funny part is?" Chen continued. We detected your fleet 3 weeks ago. We've been watching you the whole time. We let the Valak take position. We wanted to see if they'd actually try to defend us. And they did, which is sweet, honestly. But we never needed them. Another volley of railgun fire tore through Zarthol's formation. This time the humans aimed for his flagship. The impacts shook the massive vessel, alerts blaring as systems failed throughout the ship. Return fire. Zarthol screamed. All weapons! Kill them all. The Krethix fleet unleashed everything it had. Energy weapons, missiles, kinetic cannons. The space between the fleets lit up like a newborn sun. And through it all, the human ships danced and killed, and came on like vengeful demons, their weapons turning Krethix superiority into burning debris. The battle was not going as War Prince Zarthol had planned. Not at all. Another Krethix cruiser exploded on his tactical display. That made 11 ships lost in the first 20 minutes. 20 minutes. Some campaigns lasted weeks with fewer casualties. His officers were shouting reports, but they all said the same thing. The humans were winning. Regroup. Zarthol commanded. Pull back to defensive formation, Gamma. Focus fire on their largest vessels. But the human ships didn't fight like any enemy he'd faced before. Where other species formed battle lines and traded volleys like civilized warriors, the humans swarmed. They split into dozens of small groups, attacked from multiple angles, and never stayed still long enough to be targeted effectively. On the Valak flagship, Ambassador Thorin watched the battle unfold with growing horror. Not horror at human defeat, horror at human victory. And at the methods they used to achieve it. They're not fighting honorably, her tactical officer whispered. They're fighting to win, no rules, no restraint. A group of human fighters dove toward a Krethix battleship. The battleship's point defense systems activated, shooting down most of them. But 3 got through. They didn't fire weapons. They just kept going, crashing into the battleship's engine section at full speed. The resulting explosion tore the ship in half. Did they just... Thorin couldn't finish the sentence. Kamikaze attack, her officer said, checking the translation matrix. It's a human term. They deliberately sacrificed their own lives to destroy a larger target. The pilots knew they were going to die. Thorin felt sick. What kind of species treated their own lives as ammunition? The answer was playing out before her eyes. The kind of species that had fought itself for thousands of years. The kind that had learned warfare not as a tool but as an art form. A Krethix destroyer tried to maneuver away from the human swarm. Human missiles pursued it. But the Krethix point defense was good. Most of the missiles were destroyed. But then something strange happened. The missiles that got through didn't explode. They just attached themselves to the destroyer's hull and sat there. What are they doing? Thorin wondered aloud. 5 seconds later, the answer came. Every missile detonated simultaneously, but they weren't explosive warheads. They were electromagnetic pulse weapons. The destroyer's systems failed all at once. Shields, weapons, engines, life support. The ship went dark, drifting helplessly in space. They disabled it, Thorin's officer said with dawning realization. They didn't destroy it. They're capturing it. More human ships moved in, latching onto the dead destroyer with docking clamps. Boarding teams. The humans were going to take the ship intact, learn its technology, interrogate the crew. It was practical, efficient, terrifying. How are they doing this? Thorin asked. Our analysis said their technology was primitive. Her science officer pulled up data streams on a nearby screen. Ambassador, I've been analyzing the human weapons systems in real time. They're using technology combinations we never considered. Those railguns? They're not generating enough power to accelerate the projectiles. They're using gravitational manipulation. They're literally pulling the projectiles forward using artificial gravity wells. And those missiles that take down shields? They're not brute forcing through. They're hacking the shield generators. Hacking? The humans have apparently spent centuries developing digital warfare capabilities. They're attacking the Krethix computer systems directly, finding backdoors, exploiting weaknesses. Ambassador, the Krethix shields aren't failing, they're being turned off from the inside. Thorin pulled up the human communication channels, listening to their tactical chatter. What she heard made her blood run cold. Delta Wing, I'm painting targets for you now. Hit the command nodes, disable their coordination. Copy that. Firing spread pattern 7. Should maximize confusion in their ranks. Charlie Squad, their computer system is 19th iteration Krethix military standard. Use exploit package 773. Got it. Breaching their firewall now. Oh wow, their security is terrible. I'm in their target acquisition system, feeding them false data. They talked about warfare like humans talked about. Cooking? Casual. Practiced? Normal. These weren't soldiers fighting. Their first battle. These were veterans executing a plan they'd practiced 1,000 times, just against different enemies. How long have they been preparing for this? Thorin whispered. Her tactical officer pulled up historical data from Earth. Ambassador, according to our records, humans have been fighting organized wars for approximately 5,000 years. Constant continuous warfare. They've never stopped. Every generation improves on the tactics of the last. Every new technology gets weaponized immediately. They don't just study war, they live it. On the Krethix flagship, Zarthel was having similar realizations. And he did not like them. Analysis. He barked at his science officers. How are they doing this? The senior science officer looked terrified as she delivered her report. War Prince, we underestimated them completely. Yes, their ships use primitive fusion drives, but they use them in ways we never considered. They're using gravity slingshots around their planet's moon to gain additional velocity. They're venting coolant to create false heat signatures. They're even using solar wind to mask their electronic emissions. Those are old tricks, Zarthel said. Ancient techniques, yes, sir. But they work. And the humans have had thousands of years to perfect them. They've also developed technologies we never prioritized. Electronic warfare, information systems penetration, psychological manipulation. War Prince. They're broadcasting messages on our internal communication channels. They're telling our crews that we've already lost, that surrender is the only option. Some ships are reporting crew unrest. Zarthel slammed his fist on his command throne. Jam their transmissions. We're trying, sir, but they're using multiple frequencies simultaneously, shifting constantly. Our communication officers can't keep up. Another explosion rocked the flagship. The humans had moved to close range, too close for the main cannons to track effectively. They were using the Krethix fleet's own size against them, hiding in sensor shadows, attacking from blind spots. Pull back, Zarthel ordered. All ships retreat to— Sir, we can't, his navigation officer interrupted. The humans have positioned ships behind us. They're boxing us in. Zarthel looked at his tactical display with new eyes. The chaotic human movements he'd dismissed as primitive tactics, they weren't chaotic at all. They were a carefully orchestrated maneuver. While he'd been focused on the ships attacking from the front, others had circled around. The humans had been herding his fleet into a kill zone. They planned this, he said slowly, from the beginning. Every move we made, they were ready for it. His tactical officer nodded grimly. It's like they were reading our minds, sir. Every standard Krethix tactical response, they had a counter ready. It's as if they knew exactly what we were going to do. Because they studied us, Zarthel realized. They didn't just detect our fleet. They watched us, learned our patterns. These humans fight with information as much as weapons. A human voice cut through his command channel. Admiral Chen again, but this time he sounded almost bored. War Prince, you've now lost 17 ships. That's one for each world you conquered. Poetic, don't you think? You can surrender now or we can keep going. Your choice. Zarthel wanted to rage, to fight, to die with honor, but he looked at his tactical display and saw the truth. His fleet was surrounded. His ships were being picked apart. And the humans were still fresh, barely scratched. He'd come to Earth expecting to fight primitives with rocks and sticks. Instead, he'd found something far worse. A species that had been at war with itself for millennia, and had learned every possible way to kill and be killed. All ships, Zarthel said quietly, his voice heavy with defeat. Power down weapons. Prepare to be boarded. Behind the human lines, the Velak watched in stunned silence. In 30 minutes, humanity had accomplished what the Concordance never could. They'd beaten the Krethix, and they'd barely broken a sweat. War Prince Zarthel stood in the center of his own command bridge, surrounded by human soldiers. They had boarded his flagship within minutes of his surrender, moving through the corridors with practiced efficiency. They knew exactly where to go, which systems to secure, which crew members were officers and which were just technicians. They had studied Krethix ship layouts. Of course they had. A human commander approached him. She was shorter than Zarthel, but she carried herself with absolute confidence. She wore armor covered in scars and dents. This was someone who had seen combat before. Many times before. I'm Commander Williams, she said through a translation device. You're now a prisoner of the Terran Defense Force. Your crew will be treated according to interstellar law provided they cooperate. Do you understand? Zarthel nodded slowly. I understand. But I do not understand how. Your species, you should not have been able to do this. Our intelligence, our scouts, our surveillance, everything said you were primitive, weak. William smiled. It was not a kind smile. Your scouts watched us fight each other. Did they tell you that? That most of your intelligence came from observing human-on-human conflicts? Yes, Zarthel said. We saw your wars, your weapons, your tactics. Right, so let me ask you something, War Prince. When you fight a training exercise, do you use your best equipment? Your most devastating weapons? Your real battle tactics? Zarthel felt something cold settle in his chest. No, training uses limited weapons. Restricted tactics. You do not reveal your true capabilities to potential enemies. He stopped. But we were watching your real wars. Actual conflicts between your nations, were they? Williams asked. Or were they conflicts between humans who all wanted Earth to survive? See, here's the thing you didn't understand. When we fight each other, we hold back. We have to. Because we all live on the same planet. If we used our most destructive weapons, if we fought with no restraint, we'd destroy our own home. So we developed rules, conventions, limits. She gestured toward the viewport where disabled Krethik ships drifted in the darkness. But you don't live on our planet. You came from somewhere else. You threatened our home, so we didn't have to hold back. Zarthel thought about the weapons he'd faced. The railguns that violated every principle of efficient power generation. The viruses that cracked military-grade firewalls in seconds. The tactics that seemed to predict every move he made. How long have you been preparing to fight aliens? He asked. Since we realized we weren't alone in the universe, Williams replied. About 70 years ago, we detected the first signs of faster-than-light travel in nearby star systems. We didn't know who you were or what you wanted, but we knew someone was out there, so we prepared. Every military on Earth shifted focus. Yes, we still fought each other. Old habits die hard. But we also prepared for the day when someone from the stars came visiting. And we made a decision. We would not be victims. She pulled up a holographic display showing Earth. Do you know what makes humans dangerous, War Prince? It's not our technology. It's not even our tactics. It's that we've been trying to kill each other for our entire history. Humans have fought wars with sticks, with swords, with guns, with bombs, with computer viruses, with information, with economics, with culture. We've weaponized everything, including ourselves. Zarthel was taken to a holding cell deep in his own ship now controlled by humans. As he sat alone, he thought about the 17 worlds the Krethiks had conquered. It had been easy. Most species, when faced with overwhelming force, surrendered. It was logical. Survival was more important than pride. But humans didn't think like that. They thought like warriors who had been fighting forever and expected to fight forever more. Survival wasn't about surrendering, it was about making your enemy regret ever meeting you. On the Velic flagship, Ambassador Thorin was having her own crisis of understanding. Her staff had compiled a full analysis of the battle. As she reviewed it, each page made her feel sicker than the last. The humans knew the Krethiks were coming 3 weeks ago, her intelligence officer reported. They detected them at the edge of the system using deep space monitoring stations we didn't even know they had. They watched the Krethiks approach, analyzed their formation, identified their likely tactics, and prepared specific countermeasures. But they let us position ourselves between them and the threat, Thorin said. Why? We believe it was a test, Ambassador. They wanted to see if we would truly defend them. And we did, which seems to have impressed them. But they never actually needed our protection. Human ships were in position the entire time. They were just hiding where our sensors couldn't detect them. Thorin pulled up the video feeds from the battle again. She watched human ships execute maneuvers that should have killed their crews from the G-forces involved. How did their pilots survive those accelerations? They didn't, her science officer said quietly. Most of those fighters were remotely piloted. The humans kept their crew on larger ships at safe distances and controlled the smaller attack craft via quantum-linked communication systems. They've been using drone warfare for over a century. But some of those ships had pilots, Thorin protested. The ones that performed suicide attacks. We detected life signs, yes, Ambassador. Those were volunteers. Humans who chose to die to destroy enemy ships. The words hung in the air like poison. Thorin thought about Velak culture, where every life was precious. Where soldiers were trained to disable rather than kill, where the goal of war was to minimize suffering on all sides. Humans had volunteers willing to turn themselves into missiles. "Pull up our surveillance files on Earth," Thorin ordered. "All of them. I want to review everything." For the next hours, she watched decades of observations, and she saw them all with new eyes. The wars weren't signs of a primitive species, they were training grounds. Every conflict was a laboratory where new weapons and tactics were tested. When humans fought each other, they learned, they adapted, they improved. The environmental damage wasn't ignorance, it was the cost of an arms race. Every nation pushed its industry to produce more weapons, faster ships, better computers. They accepted the pollution because the alternative was being weaker than their neighbors. The political conflicts weren't dysfunction, they were competition. Different human groups testing different organizational methods, different strategies, different approaches to problems. The ones that worked survived and spread. The ones that failed were abandoned. Everything the Velak had interpreted as humanity being young and foolish was actually humanity being efficient and ruthless. "Ambassador," her communications officer said hesitantly, "we're receiving a message from Admiral Chen. He's requesting a meeting." "Tell him I'll come to his ship," Thorin said. "He's already here, Ambassador." His shuttle is docking now. Of course it was. Humans didn't wait for invitations. Admiral Chen entered Thorin's office with 2 guards. He looked tired but satisfied. "Ambassador Thorin, thank you for seeing me." "You're welcome aboard," Thorin said carefully. "Though I suspect you would have come whether I welcomed you or not." Chen smiled. "Probably. I wanted to talk about what happens next." "You're going to execute the Krethiks," Thorin said. "Take revenge for their threats." "No," Chen said. "We're going to imprison the war criminals, offer clemency to the regular soldiers, and eventually, once we're sure they're sincere, we'll let them go home." Thorin blinked. "I don't understand. They came to conquer you, to enslave your people." "I know," Chen said, "and we stopped them. But executing prisoners or enslaving them in return, that would make us like them. We fought this battle to protect Earth, not to become monsters." "But you killed thousands of Krethiks during the fight," Thorin pointed out. "In battle, yes, because they were trying to kill us. But once they surrendered," Chen shook his head. "Different situation. We have rules about that. Humans learned a long time ago that how you treat defeated enemies determines what kind of people you become." Thorin studied the human admiral. "You're very good at war, Admiral. Better than any species the Concordance has encountered. But you also have rules that limit how you wage war." "I don't understand how both things can be true." Chen sat down, gesturing for permission first. "Because we've fought so much, we learned what happens when you fight without rules. Total war, no limits, no mercy. We've done that. Many times. And the results were horrifying. So we developed conventions. Laws of war. They're not about making war gentle or kind. War is never that. They're about making sure we don't destroy ourselves completely. Do all humans follow these rules?" "No," Chen admitted. "Some don't, and we fight those who break the rules too. That's part of why we're so good at fighting. We've had to police ourselves for centuries." He pulled up a holographic display showing Earth. "Ambassador, I know what you've been thinking. You've been watching us for decades and thought you understood us. You saw violence and assumed we were primitive. But here's what you missed. Every species that survives long enough to reach space has solved violence somehow. Some species evolved past it. You Velak found peace through philosophy and culture. The Krethiks use violence to impose order. They don't fight each other because they have a rigid hierarchy." "And humans?" Thorin asked. "We're still figuring it out," Chen said honestly. 3 days after the battle, representatives from 12 Velak worlds arrived at Earth's orbital station. They came in a state of profound confusion. The Krethiks, their greatest fear, had been defeated in less than an hour. The humans, whom they had come to protect, had done the protecting instead. And now those same humans had requested a formal diplomatic meeting. Ambassador Thorin greeted them in the human-built conference room. It was a strange space, functional and plain, with none of the artistic flourishes that would grace a Velak meeting hall. The chairs were designed for multiple body types, showing that humans had thought about alien comfort. But the walls were covered in displays showing data, tactical readouts, and information streams. Even in a peace conference, humans kept their fingers on the pulse of war. "The Council is concerned," High Speaker Valen said as the meeting began. She was old by Velek standards, her skin having deepened to a dark blue that spoke of centuries lived in peace. We came to defend Earth from the Krethiks. Instead, we witnessed humanity defeat them with ease. This has forced us to reconsider many assumptions. What kind of assumptions? Asked General Martinez, who represented Earth alongside Admiral Chen. Valen chose her words carefully. We believed humanity was young and violent in need of guidance to find peace. We believed the Concordance could teach you a better way, but now we wonder if you are something else entirely. Not young, but dangerous. Not in need of guidance, but in need of containment. The word hung in the air like a threat. Martinez's expression didn't change, but Thorin noticed his jaw tighten slightly. Containment, he repeated. You mean quarantine? You want to seal off the Sol system? Keep us away from the rest of the galaxy? Some council members have suggested it, Valen admitted, for the safety of peaceful species. You defeated the Krethiks so easily. What's to stop you from becoming the next conquerors? Before Martinez could respond, Admiral Chen spoke up. Hi, Speaker, may I ask you a question? How many worlds has the Velak Concordance lost to the Krethiks? 17, Valen said quietly. 17 worlds, millions of lives, entire cultures erased. We tried to defend them. We failed every time. And how many wars has the Concordance fought in the last 1,000 years? None. We are a peaceful alliance. We have defensive fleets, but we do not wage war. Chen nodded. That's what I thought. Here's the thing, High Speaker, peace is wonderful. It's what every species should aspire to. But the galaxy isn't peaceful. You've learned that the hard way. The Krethiks exist, and from what we've learned interrogating their crews, they're not even the worst threat out there. There are other empires, other conquerors, other dangers. We know this, Valen said, which is why we maintain defensive fleets. Defensive fleets led by people who have never fought a real war, Martinez interjected. With respect, High Speaker, we watched your tactical deployment when you positioned yourselves to defend Earth. Your formation was rigid. Your weapon systems were designed to disable rather than destroy. Your communication protocols were easy to intercept. If the Krethiks had reached you before reaching us, you would have died bravely. But you would have died. The Velak representatives shifted uncomfortably. Thorin had warned them that humans were blunt, but hearing it stated so plainly still stung. So what are you suggesting? Valen asked. That the Concordance should become warriors like you? That we should embrace violence? No, Chen said firmly. You shouldn't become like us. The galaxy needs peaceful species like the Velak. You build culture, art, philosophy. You seek understanding and cooperation. Those are valuable things, and the universe would be darker without them. But, Valen prompted, but you also need protection, Martinez finished. Real protection from people who understand war because they've lived it. That's what we're offering. Valen leaned back in her chair. You want to become our military. We want to become the Concordance's shield, Chen corrected. Let us be honest about what humans are. We're good at violence. We've spent thousands of years perfecting it. We've tried to overcome it, to move past it, to build peace among ourselves, and we're making progress, but slowly, very slowly. And in the meantime, we have this capacity for organized destruction that we're really, really good at. Martinez picked up the thread. For most of our history, we've pointed that capacity at each other. And it's been terrible. The death toll, the suffering, the waste. It's one of the great tragedies of human existence. We're trying to stop, to find better ways to resolve our differences. But it's hard when the only external pressure is from other humans. What we need, Chen said, is a purpose, a cause, something to fight for that isn't just our nation versus their nation, or our ideology versus theirs. We need an external focus. And you think fighting for the Concordance would provide that? Thorin asked. We think protecting peaceful species from aggressive ones is a cause worth fighting for, Martinez said. We think using our capacity for violence to prevent violence against others is a way to redeem what we are. Valen was quiet for a long moment. You're asking us to legitimize human warfare, to give you official sanction to do what you do best. We're asking you to be realistic, Chen countered. The Krethiks will come again. Maybe not to Earth now that they know what we are, but they'll attack other worlds. And there are other threats out there. We've already identified at least 3 other expansionist empires in nearby sectors from the data we pulled from Krethik's computers. The galaxy isn't safe, High Speaker, and your defensive fleets, designed by species that evolved into peace, aren't enough to protect your people. But humans who evolved through war might be, Valen said slowly. We're offering a partnership, Martinez said. The Concordance provides the diplomacy, the culture, the moral framework. Humanity provides the military capability. We follow your rules of engagement. We fight only when the Concordance faces genuine threats, and in return you help us, give us purpose, direction, oversight. Help us be something better than we've been. Another Valak representative, younger than Valen, spoke up. But what's to stop you from turning on us? You'd have all the weapons, all the military power. The Concordance would be defenseless if you decided to conquer rather than protect. It was a fair question, and Martinez didn't shy away from it. Nothing, really, except our word, and the fact that we don't want to be conquerors. Look at human history. Yes, we've had empires and dictators and tyrants, but we've also spent centuries fighting against those things, fighting for freedom, for choice, for the right of people to determine their own fate. Not always successfully, not always consistently, but always moving toward that goal. Plus, Chen added with a slight smile, you'd have leverage. You control access to the Concordance's resources, its trade networks, its diplomatic channels. If humanity proved untrustworthy, you could cut us off. Make us pariahs to every peaceful species in the galaxy. We'd gain nothing and lose everything. Valen looked at Thorin. Ambassador, you've spent more time with humans than any of us. You were there when they fought the Krethics. What do you think? Thorin thought about the human volunteers who had turned themselves into missiles, about Commander Williams explaining rules of war with genuine conviction, about Admiral Chen rescuing Krethic's crews from disabled ships, about War Prince Zarthal being held in comfortable imprisonment rather than executed. I think, she said slowly, that humans are terrifying. They're better at warfare than any species should be. They think about violence in ways that make me deeply uncomfortable. They have weapons that should never have been invented and tactics that seem designed by nightmares. The human representatives didn't react, just waited for her to continue. But I also think they're sincere. When they say they want to protect rather than conquer, I believe them. And I think High Speaker Valen is right. The galaxy isn't safe. We've lost 17 worlds trying to protect them with defensive fleets. How many more will we lose before we admit that peace-loving species need warriors to survive? So you support this proposal? Valen asked. I support giving it a chance, Thorin said. A trial period. Let human forces operate alongside Concordance defensive fleets. See how they handle real situations. If they prove trustworthy, we expand the partnership. If they don't, we dissolve it and accept the quarantine idea. The Velak representatives discussed among themselves in their own language. The debate was heated, with several members clearly opposed. But eventually, Valen turned back to the humans. We will present your proposal to the full Concordance Council. I cannot promise they will accept it. Many species will be frightened of you. That fear is not unfounded, but... She paused. But Ambassador Thorin is right. We've failed to protect our own people. If there's a chance that working with humanity could prevent future losses, we owe it to those we've lost to try. That's all we ask, Martinez said. A chance to prove ourselves. As the meeting concluded and the Velak prepared to depart, Thorin lingered behind. Admiral Chen noticed and waited with her as the room emptied. You know this could go very badly, Thorin said quietly. If humanity betrays the Concordance's trust, it will start a war that could consume the entire sector. I know, Chen said, and that possibility keeps me up at night. But you know what else keeps me up?